In this edition of my Succession video series, I'm going to break down my thoughts about the season 2 opener of Succession. I'm mostly done, probably or at least halfway done with season 2. I'm not going to do episode by episode necessarily, but I'm going to do breakdowns of the overall season and story arcs and all that good stuff. So we're going to start out. This one will happen to be about the first episode of season 2 because it very much sets the table for what's going to go on with the storyline and the characters overall throughout the season. So season 2 opens, as I mentioned in my prior video, season 1 ends. Kendall has been discovered as having essentially killed, though unintentionally, the waiter who was helping him to get drugs. So Logan had told him at the end of the season he's going to help make the problem go away, and Kendall, should go to the desert and get cleaned up. And I talked about desert symbolism in prior videos, so you can go back to those to go into that. So now let's look at symbolically what's happening with Kendall's character in the season 2 opener. He is in what looks like, it's not a jacuzzi, maybe not a hot tub, but he's in some type of bath. And there's desert surroundings, and it almost looks like he's on another planet, but he's in the desert ostensibly, and he's in this pool, and he's soaking, and he's being cleansed, at least theoretically. And then what looks like a nurse or some type of worker at this rehab, presumably, which is where he is she comes in, she's wearing all white. And that's sort of symbolic as a messenger. She's not necessarily an angel, although that's usually symbolized. The color white and angels are usually associated. But anyway, she comes with a message saying someone's there to speak to him. And basically what it involves is Kendall's barely had a chance to get back to normal, or at least attempt to sober up. And he's already thrust back into being before a TV camera defending his dad and advising as to why he was going to side with his dad rather than the corporate raiders he was agreeing to help. He basically says dad's plan was better. It looks like a hostage video, but it seems to go over okay. And Logan is actually happy with him for once. He says it's the one time in his stupid life that he's done well, something to that effect. So he's quite pleased with his son. And then they're going to have a family meeting at a house that looks like it's out in the Hamptons. It probably is where it is. And as I mentioned before, it's much more likely an ultra-wealthy family would go to the Hamptons for a family get-together rather than the desert, although the show needed the desert symbolism. Now, when they get to the beach house, the shore house, there's a stink in the house, and no one wants to be in it. And we'll get into what that's about. But I think it symbolizes... it's almost like a Hamlet. There's something rotten in the state of Denmark. That's what it appears to be. Maybe not a direct reference to, but you'll see like something literally is rotten in the house. So then there's a scene with that's really well done symbolically where Shiv and Roman are talking about what's going to go on in the company. And basically with Kendall out of power, it looks like things could be going well for Roman. And he and Shiv are talking about this, and she says, hey, this could be good for you, blah, blah, blah. And without getting too much into their dialogue, in the background, they're standing on these steps that would lead you down to the water, which is common of a lot of those Long Island homes. And you've got the waves crashing in the background. So you have this sort of sea change at Waystar Royco, a sea change within the family. Kendall is going out with the old tide. And as the tide flows back in, it looks like potentially Roman could benefit from that. So I thought symbolically that was really well done visually. It was a simple scene. It wasn't too complex visually, but just the waves really were good with that. And Kendall comes to this house. He comes to the house. He's going to meet with the family as well. He's lost. He's, again, this 5 o'clock shadow like he did when he was in rough shape and starting to do drugs again in the first season, and he just looks like a mess. But he's coming anyway. He's not going to go back to this rehab where he was in Europe. It was probably Iceland, just because I think there are sort of deserts or desolate-looking areas there. So I don't know. But anyway, so he comes in, and the fixer, at least that's who it seems like, the fixer of the family, Colin, says, would you like to be debriefed about what's going on with the waiter? In other words, do you want to hear about the guy you killed? And Kendall more or less says, no, I'm not really interested, but he begins to tell him anyway. And as I talked about at the end of last season, in the book Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, one of the main themes is that even if you can get away with a murder, even if you could commit a crime, there is something about someone who understands morality and understands that they have a soul that will not allow them to live with themselves if they've done that. So in a sense, you punish yourself even if you are not punished for your crimes. And this is very true in many ways. People in their lives in general, people punishing themselves, whether they realize it or not. And so he has to hear about this again. And it's basically the guy saying, hey, you're in good shape. You're going to keep getting away with this. But he's not an evil person, Kendall, in the sense that Logan is capable of really being brutal. He's not like that. He's not a tyrant. And in his soul, somehow, he knows this is not right, and that's going to bubble up throughout the show as subconscious repressions always bubble up. Next up, they figure out what the stink is. It's a raccoon that has died in the chimney. It's stinking up the home. It looks all disgusting. There's maggots growing on it, and it's symbolic of a lot of things. It's whether it's rot at the head of the family or like whether or not they're dead because of this takeover attempt, their power is dead, or at least Logan's. Whatever you want to say that it might be symbolic of. There's a lot going on there. It's an interesting little addition to the episode. It's not accidental, and it also shows or it opens up a good scenario to display just how brutal Logan can be when he absolutely reams out the contractor and blames him for sticking a dead raccoon in his chimney. It's a ludicrous thing to accuse somebody of, but it shows he feels like he's getting attacked on all sides, so screw it, the contractor's just as guilty for coming after me, so I'm going to take him down. I'm going to give him something like 30 grand instead of 300 grand. So there's some huge gap in what he agreed to pay him and what he's actually going to pay him. Now, Logan wants to have the family there to talk about what they should do with the company. And everyone knows in the family when they sit down at the table that if they voice their opinion and maybe they're okay with selling the company, he's going to hate them forever and say, you're out of luck, you turned on me or whatever. They're too smart for this. And so as they're going back and forth, Logan just gets up from the table and he goes to a room, he goes to a study. And as they come and find him and knock on the door, he says, send everyone in one by one. And the scenes are really well done because it basically, the way he's dressed and the way he is sitting on a couch and almost like stroking his beard and very deep in thought and very good at listening to everyone who comes in, showing a different side of himself. It's very, very much like a Sigmund Freud taking people in, and he's literally on the couch and he's listening to people and taking their concerns and thoughts and suggestions. So I thought that was really well done, and it gets into the character psychology. So this more Freudian turn by Logan allows other people to open up around him in private, and of course to add to the palace intrigue nature of the show, which I'll go into next. So when Shiv comes in, she proves her shiviness, if you will, by being willing to stab Roman essentially in the back. Logan, they don't think is a threat at this time, but she had just been telling Roman a few scenes before, hey, I think this might be good for you. You might be next in line. This is going to strengthen your position with Kendall being on Dad's, on his bad side. And so, but Logan's also incredibly manipulative. So he knows Shiv is trying to do something more powerful, and she's working with this Democratic senator, the Bernie Sanders type guy, Gil. She's working with him partially despite her father. It's like, I'm going to go work for your enemy to show you how much I hate you, or to show you what I'm capable of because you don't see it in me. So however you want to say, she's looking at that. There's a number of factors there, but basically, Logan says, I think it's time you come in. I think you could take things over for me, which personally, if I had to choose one of the kids, even though she's kind of brutal, I think she'd be best to run the company because she's capable. She's really smart. And she's willing to stab people at the back in a way that Kendall has trouble doing. He can't really take the reins from his father because he respects him and fears him too much. Whereas she'll go right head to head with her dad. So I think that's really well done. And again, Logan's super manipulative because he'll say this to anyone. He'll say, yeah, you're next in line. We saw him do it with Kendall. We see him name Roman a COO, even though he wouldn't be. COO is like your chief of staff. Like, that's the guy helping to run the day-to-day. He's not a guy who does that, but he's got the title. So you see his ability to manipulate, and this opens up a new storyline for Shiv within the season, which continues to play out at least up to the episodes I'm in. I'm sure it continues. And then one of the things that's interesting is that Kendall, in losing this fight with his father, in killing the guy in the car accident, in being saved by his father, his father's played all these different archetypes of like the tyrannical father, the good father, and saving him, and it's basically turned Kendall into his puppet. It's like he is so manipulated and so weakened in his position by his father, and of course by his own actions, mainly, not by his father in total, only partially, that he's basically a puppet of his father, and it continues to play out, but he almost seems like a zombie as the season progresses, and you start to wonder, when is he going to break? It's almost like, when's he going to break character? Because although it may be natural for him to report into his father, it is definitely not natural for him to be a zombie, to not share his opinions, to not at least feel like he's capable. So I thought the season 2 opener is really good. As I go through, I have some critiques of season 2 based on where characters go at certain points, but nothing major about the storyline. So far, I'm liking it, and I'll continue to update and give my thoughts on future episodes.